How is everybody? All right? Oh, I'm louder now. I was fully prepared to get out here on stage and say thank you both for coming, but the room has filled a little more since I walked in. So we're here. I've got 10 minutes to talk to you about, and I'm going to do this all the time. I can already feel it, which is just wrong, isn't it? But it's unavoidable with this clicker. I don't mean it. I'm going to try and talk to you for the next 10 minutes about where I feel we're at right now with enterprise security and where it's going. And then we're going to develop that theme more. We're going to lead straight into a panel afterwards. So, yeah, let's talk about the problems that we have in security right now and the challenges that are faced by businesses and by individuals. What we see happening with regularity, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with this, is a race to adopt new technology. Companies are in a race, enterprises are in a race to adopt technology, to bring new services and products to market, to be the first, to be the most innovative, to do something new, to do something well. And security often takes a back seat in those thought processes, in those decision-making processes. The thing that really drives the decision-making is making sure that we have the functionality, rather than making sure that the functionality itself is secure. There's a drive for CI/CD, continuous implementation, continuous development, continuous deployment. And QA processes and bug hunting often take a backseat in all of those processes. So it's not that we need to stop the rate at which we are integrating new technology and bringing new technology within our organizations. What we have to do is we have to change the mindset, because what happens right now, as technology is adopted within an enterprise architecture, it often becomes a game of adopt, implement, here, secure this. And that's not the way forwards. That's the next phase. The security function within enterprise is really no different. Security functions within enterprises are also adopting new technology, adopting new solutions extremely rapidly. Marketing is a huge player here. The cybersecurity industry, which I'm a part of, is a hugely competitive one. And everybody is pushing their solutions as the next great silver bullet. Everything is zero trust, everything is AI, everything is machine learning, everything is going to fix all of your problems. And what's often happening is that buying decisions are quite driven by marketing, they're quite driven by events, and they're quite driven by listening to your peers. But unfortunately, your peers in the security industry don't all implement the same technology. So you're hearing different things from different people who are adopting different technologies and having a great time with them. So you end up buying far more than you can ever deal with. And you end up having far more information coming in to your security function than you can ever deal with. And the reason I picked this image to illustrate this point, in a security operations center, a typical security operations center, and this is according to some data by Palo Alto Networks, they did a survey, a typical SOC of today is dealing with 11,000 alerts in every 24-hour period. Okay? 11,000 alerts a day. So if you imagine each alert, just to do the triage, right, just to work out if it's worth looking at or not looking at, false positive, false negative, wrongly classified, about half an hour's work per alert, let's say. So for 11,000 alerts, you're looking at 5,500 hours of work to do in every 24-hour period. So if you want to get through that triage, you would need a security operations center team of 687 people, that's 3 shifts, just to go through the triage before you even take any action. So adoption of new technology within the enterprise is driving up that volume, and adoption of new technology within the security function is driving down the capability to deal with that volume. And it's not just that. Integration is a problem too. Integration is an extremely difficult challenge, not just of all the new technology that we've been speaking about already, but also legacy technology. So a lot of organizations are dealing with legacy technology that's been there, especially things like critical national infrastructure, utilities providers, manufacturing. Technology that was never designed to be connected in the first place is now being connected to networks and exposed. And those supposedly protected networks are being connected to the enterprise network and exposed. All of this is inherently insecure by design. It was never designed to be connected. Over and above that, you also have to consider processes, because it's not just about technology. It's not just about the devices that are connected to your network, whether they're managed, unmanaged, IT, OT, IoT, medical technology, all of these devices are being connected. It's actually about the processes as well. Because often when we talk about a vulnerability right now, the assumption is that we're talking about a vulnerability in code, right? Very often that's the conversation that you will hear, or the assumption that's immediately made. Oh, there was a vulnerability in Microsoft Word. There was a vulnerability in Mac OS. But processes have vulnerabilities as well. And criminals take advantage, attackers take advantage of those process vulnerabilities. Processes, almost by definition, are based on some inherent level of trust, which again, almost by definition, makes them insecure by design. And attackers absolutely take advantage of that. Think about business email compromise, where the attacker compromises the inbox belonging to a senior exec within the business and sends an email from, say, that CEO's inbox to somebody senior in finance with a very urgent invoice that must be paid immediately. And suddenly 50 million euros is transferred out of the corporate account. That happens regularly. It's a failure in process. How does that payment get authorized by one single person for that amount within an organization? Poor process. Criminals like to take advantage. Right now, we're looking at a situation at MGM. I'm sure many of you have seen that in the news. MGM is the victim of a cyber attack right now that's taken out a lot of their hotel properties, and critically for them, a lot of their casino floors, where you can imagine the daily turnover. That wasn't a cyber attack at the outset. It eventuated in ransomware in the corporate environment, but it started, believe it or not, with a phone call. The attacker did their research up front, identifies who works in which department, picks out a couple of names, gets associated information, makes a phone call to help desk and says, hey, I'm really sorry, I've forgotten my password, can you help me reset it? And they're in. And that takes out all of the properties, all of the gaming, a flaw in process. I know we're going to develop that point in the panel. I'm very tempted to go on, but I won't. And so of course, we're talking about technology, adoption, integration. We're talking about the security function in a business. The final thing that we need to consider is the threat actor, the people doing bad stuff. The threat actors also evolve, and they evolve more rapidly and in possibly more unexpected ways than enterprises. We, the good guys, we have to play with an open hand. You always know which technology is available to us. You always know kind of how it's implemented, how networks are architected. Bad guys don't have to play by any rules at all, so they get to experiment and try out and discard and move rapidly. What you also have to remember, though, is that there's nothing new under the sun. You might wonder why there's such an old image in front of you right now when I'm talking about threat actors innovating constantly. Because it's not just about the tools that you use, the software, the ransomware. It's also about the tactics, the techniques, and the procedures, the TTPs of threat actors. Ransomware, I've mentioned it a couple of times, and it's all over the news all the time. Ransomware dates back, believe it or not, to the age of the 5.25-inch floppy disk. The first ever ransomware was something that probably looking around, many of you don't even know what I'm talking about. It's the reason disks are called floppy, because they used to be. The first ever ransomware was delivered on one of those, I think it was 1988. Criminals are still using that kind of vehicle, but there's been endless innovation on that theme. Locking your files to begin with, actually changing the file extension to begin with, then locking your computer and access to your files, and then encrypting your files. And now attackers are like, why should we bother encrypting? Because actually, they have backups and they can recover from backups. So let's not bother with encryption because it's a massive headache. We'll just steal all the data and we'll threaten to leak the data because you're much more likely to pay up against stolen data, and you've got many, many, many fewer options to recover from stolen data than you do from encrypted data. You're probably familiar with what I call the 419 scam or the Nigerian prince. I'm sure you've had emails like that in your inbox. It's also called advanced fee fraud. They were talking about on BBC Breakfast just yesterday, I think. What you're looking at in front of you right here is advanced fee fraud. That particular scam is more than 200 years old. It used to be called the Spanish prisoner scam. You would receive a written letter with supporting evidence. Hey, I've been taken prisoner. I'm in a prison in Spain. If you can help me get out, of course, there's a little payment we have to make to get me out of prison, but then I'll share my fortune with you when I get out. That's exactly the same scam. So what's the future of enterprise security? They often call us, the security function, they call us the Department of No. because we like to tell people you can't do that, you can't do it that way, you can't do it here, you can't do it now. So I wanted to leave you with 5 other no's to go along with the Department of No, which to me characterize the future of security. Know yourself, understand what you have, where it is, how it's configured. Know your enemy, know the threat actor and their TTPs that are arrayed against you. Know your security posture. What do you have? How is it deployed? How are you securing yourself? Know your risk appetite. Which risks are you prepared to accept and which risks are entirely unacceptable, and deploy and configure accordingly. And finally, know your limits. We can't all do everything. Know what you can do it well, and what you can't do, seek help, outsource.